فسبح باسم ربك العظيم سبح لله ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم.
The second last chapter of the book, the author he brings the chapter regarding Waqf and stopping. Waqf. Previous Qurra would use the term Waqf, Qata' and Sakt synonymously, and with time, however, they came to define the rules more specifically. Qata', it literally means to cut. Now from here on, I would like to just remind the listener that you should always learn the literal meaning and the technical meaning of all the definitions that came in the book. This will help us have a good understanding of the terminologies. So qata' it literally means to cut. Technically, when we speak about qata', what does it mean? It means to cut or end the recitation without the intention of continuing. Qata' is only allowed at the end of the ayah. So for example, a person is reading Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman, there he closes the Quran and he gets up and he goes. So this will not be allowed because it is at the middle of a verse. If a person is intending to leave a recitation and terminate his recitation, he should stop at the end of the verse. So complete the verse Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. If it intends to go somewhere, then he should read at the end of the ayah. So if one wants to make qata', it has to be at the end of a verse. Waqf, and this is something which we normally hear, very seldom we hear or know about qata', but we mostly hear about waqf. What is waqf? It literally means to stop. Technically, it is to stop at the end of a complete word long enough to renew the breath with the intention of continuing recitation. So when a person wants to make waqf, it has to be at the end of a complete word. A person can't make waqf ar-rah. So that's not waqf. He has to make waqf on a complete word. So you have to say ar-Rahman. If, just by way of an example, if someone wants to make waqf, it has to be made on a complete word long enough to renew someone's breath and then continuing his recitation. Sakt, it literally means silence. Technically, it means to stop the sound whilst reciting without breaking the breath. So this is one differentiating factor between sakt and waqf, is that in sakt there will be no termination of the breath. You won't renew your breath, you won't take a breath, but the sound will only stop. Whereas in waqf, the sound will stop and the breath will also stop. A person will take a new breath. When discussing waqf, there are three things which are considered. So out of qata', waqf and sakt, we are discussing waqf. There are three things which to be considered: the condition of the qari, what state he is going to be in, the place where the qari stops, so we're going to be looking at words and so on, and the haraka of the last letter upon which waqf is being made. Number one, the condition of the qari. Waqf is of four types. Considering the condition of the qari, waqf is of four types. Al-waqful ikhtibari, the examinatory stop. What is this? This waqf is made when being tested by a teacher, etc. This waqf is allowed, it is jaiz, with the condition that the Qari starts his recitation from that particular word again if it doesn't distort the meaning, else he will have to start before the word upon which he made waqf. If it is at the end of a verse, he should continue his recitation from the next verse. I should have mentioned at the beginning, I'll mention it now, that normally waqf, we just read through it because a lot of it, or in fact most of it, is to do with understanding the meaning of the Quran and understanding the connections between the verses in a grammar sense. So grammatically, there would be connections between verses and meanings also. So normally, or generally, we do not know the meanings of the Quran and the connections via grammar. So this is more of an encouragement to one and all that we should try to learn the meaning of the Quran, learn what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in the various verses. So waqf ikhtibari is that stop. When a teacher stops a student, for example, he's reading Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So the teacher stops him. So that stop will be allowed on the condition that the Qari starts his recitation from that particular word again if it doesn't distort the meaning. So he stops, for example, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the teacher stopped him and he corrects his mistake and he tells him it is a ha, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So there it will be permissible, and because it's the end of the verse, he can just correct the mistake and he can move on to the next verse. However, if it is in the middle of a verse, it is not at the end of the verse, he will have to start from that particular word again if it doesn't distort the meaning. If it doesn't distort the meaning, then you can just move on to the next word and carry on. So then we have to know the meaning and we will have to understand the verses to know what is required from us. Number 2, al-waqf al-intidhari, the adjourning stop. So this waqf is made on a particular place solely to complete the various qira'at. As we know, there are various types and modes of reciting the Quran, and some places there will be multiple changes. So because of this, a person will stop. So this waqf is also allowed, and the Qari will continue reading from that particular word in which the difference of opinion is found. So for example, if we read, we all familiar with Maliki Yawmiddin and Malik Yawmiddin. So there's just a small example. So you will just stop on Maliki and you will read whatever changes come. So it does not need to repeat what occurs before this word, because the object here is to complete all the various qira'at. So you'll find a person on one word, he will be reading multiple ways in different ways of how the various qurra has transmitted those readings. So we'll call that waqf al-intidhari. Al-waqf idtirari, the forced stop. This is an involuntary stop made by the Qari, which is caused by an unplanned break in his breath due to a cough, sneeze, etc. This waqf is allowed even though the meaning will be incomplete, but the Qari has to start his recitation from that particular word on which he stopped if the meaning allows it, or else he will have to read from before that word. So this is, for example, a person is reading Alhamdulillah Rabbil Rahman Ar-Rah and then he sneezes. So he never complete the word, he read half a word. So this is fine. He won't be taken to task for this because it is something he never planned. He sneezed, he coughed. But because he read half a word, he has to read the word again. But if he completed the word, then he can just carry on, if the meaning allows it. Number 4, al-waqf ikhtiyari, the voluntary stop. So this is a stop where the Qari chooses to stop on a particular place and renew his breath. So this is any place a person stops at the various ayat at the end of the verses. This is a waqf ikhtiyari because of his choice. He chooses to stop on that particular place.
وإذ قال إبراهيم اجعل